Call meeting to order. First of all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Four.
Okay. Is there any sign of Dwayne?
I have not heard or talked with him.
Yeah, because he said he tried to call in, but they also had some kind of auditor's conference call tonight.
I doubt it.
So we may or may not hear from him. Okay, well, we have a few things, and I hope you won't be disappointed tonight that we don't have to vote on a bonus or a performance award for snow removal, unlike our recent meetings. Seems to me that it was last July, no, it was September. I was abroad. I got a message, the sign had been hit. And that's my first order of business, to say that we're on the road to having everything in order. Dustin came in and for $200 labor and about an additional $62, replaced the hanger for the sign, installed it in such a way that it's bolted to the sign now, which I don't think it had been before originally. So that's an excellent. It has 3 legs. Replaced the ropes at the edge, the nautical-looking ropes. Put in saccharine, took away a bunch of debris, including the ladder that we used to use to change the light fixture, the light bulbs, which was probably encouraging vandals, and all the concrete blocks that were part of that ladder arrangement. So that's gone, and I believe you sent out a note that we're expecting the light to be installed, all the electrical to be refurbished this Friday. And they gave us a $50 allowance because they had thought they'd have to replace the light hanger. So, and that leaves it to Kurt and Larry for some residual patching of the boards and the letters. Now that everything is straight. Yes?
This young lady has a baseball game to go to. I wonder if we could take her first.
I'm going in this order.
I understand, but she has a place to go and requested before we got here if she could go earlier. So
how much time do you have with us?
I mean, my kids are all 3 up at a baseball field at Cove Point Park, and I need to go up there as soon as I can.
When?
As soon as I can.
Okay. Well, let me finish my president's remarks very briefly, and then if anyone has anything to say about anything else, we can open president's remarks. The other thing is the major job now tonight is the FY 2015 expense budget, which has to be approved by the board so it can go to the community for voting in June. Now, do I have approval for the agenda? It sounds like I have.
So
Seconded.
All right, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have no other public commenters but you, Jordana, but you are actually new business. You're not just a regular public. You're on the agenda, so please go to it.
Okay. I think from walking in, I understand that it says speed bumps. I think I was talking, Fran's my neighbor, so I was frustrated talking to Fran. My mailbox was a hit and run about 6 weeks ago. And then
You had what?
somebody hit my mailbox.
Oh, your mailbox. It
and
wasn't
left.
another person.
No. And then 2 weeks later, the same thing happened to the people next to me. That lady was honest. She stopped. She, I mean, not a big deal. My husband can put my mailbox back up. The point is, people are driving way too fast. I have 3 kids. They wait for the bus out there. I mean, it's not fair for me to tell them that they can't be in the front yard because people.
You don't want them in
And
the
I
road.
understand that when other people act irresponsibly, it is my job to teach my children to be more responsible.
Yes.
I'm not saying that this is on everybody else, but a basketball rolled out in the middle of the yard or in the middle of the road, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. A green pickup truck was going by, ran right over the ball, going way too fast, not 25. Turned around and came back and said, "Looky, that wasn't your kid." Are you kidding me? You should have just kept going if that was gonna be your
What road
comment.
we're talking about?
I live on
Clove
Clove
Drive.
Drive.
Excuse me, Dennis,
I want to know what road it was she was talking about.
please raise your hand and ask to be, I'm perfectly happy to recognize you, Dennis, especially you.
Well, I live right over here on Clove Drive, and I've been there for almost 2 years. This will be our 3rd summer here, so it's definitely worse. And I mean,
It's worse.
I can't speak for the whole neighborhood because I live right there on Cove Drive, okay, and that's where I spend most of my time. But I understand 25 is slow, and people are coming off of Rousby Hall Road going 50. If you're not stopping behind a car, you're potentially turning at 20 miles an hour. And then right as you come up to my house, you're about to go down a hill. I mean, it is not hard to be going 40 miles an hour. I'm not innocent of not speeding myself. I just think, you know, I kind of started to notice there's one speed limit sign on my road.
Okay,
And
and
so
it's
it's,
a 25 mile per hour.
It's a 25 mile per hour road.
All right, let me just note that this question has come up repeatedly to the
Yeah.
board. And several years ago, we got people in from the county, traffic people, and they made a few suggestions for Lake Drive and Lake Place, and it helped a bit. Not super, but it helped a bit. But we didn't realize that there was a problem, or maybe, you know, we hadn't heard about a problem on your road, so we didn't happen to bring them to look at it. But Fran had indicated that she thought speed bumps might be needed. Now, before we go to that, Dennis, you have anything else you want
No,
to
I just
comment?
wanted to know what road she was on.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, so this is in response to what was brought up at the community meeting.
Got it.
I understand that speed bumps are maybe not like a reasonable thing to ask for because of the school buses and the fire department and people who could damage their car who are driving 40 miles an hour and come up on a speed bump in front of my house. I don't want to be responsible for the damage to their vehicle, you know, but it's just recently in the last, you know, since it's not been icy and wintry outside, it's pretty bad how fast people are coming up that road. So, I don't know what the answer is. I know that eventually another 25 mile per hour sign will be white noise. But a new sign might make people notice for a few months.
You're saying the sign is gone too?
It's not gone. There's a sign
There's
right
only
when you
one.
turn on my road, but there's not a sign closer to my house. There's no sign from my house to the end of the road.
Okay,
So, I mean, my road turns into Leeson Cove.
right.
There's no 25
Well,
mile per hour sign.
Does do the school buses go on your road?
It picks up at my house.
Since our road specialist, project inspector is here, I know that there are places in other counties where they do have certain kinds of speed bumps for special places, and I believe that there's no problem with emergency vehicles. I don't know about school bus. Do you have any experience with that?
Well, limited, and not, that's something I could, you know, query with the county, but generally speaking, they tend to not want to put speed bumps in for emergency vehicles, school buses and the sort. You know, if someone is in a hurry to get somewhere. Some private communities like Cove Point have recently put them in. They're traffic calm. They're not really speed bumps. They're traffic calming devices.
Cove Point has, but do school buses go on those roads? Do you happen to know?
That I don't know. But they're quite costly. I can tell you that. The traffic calming ones. A traditional speed bump is inexpensive. It's short, small asphalt. But that's also it's almost as much a safety hazard as it is, a speed calming device. So, there's other options you can look at. I mean, if the county tends not to want to put too many speed limit signs on roads, signage on roads, although perhaps an additional speed limit
Why
sign is
not?
possible.
Why?
Because they don't want to clutter up the right of way with, with multiple, a lot of signage. So there's usually a limited spacing between signage, speed limit signs and stuff like that on roads. Now, there is a possibility you could request from the county. Joan Jaquette will sometimes, and I think she would do it in the private community, put out a radar thing posted that as you drive towards it, it'll tell you your speed. They put that on certain roads where they have some speed problems and issues with people driving too fast, to make them aware that they're driving too fast. It's something that's temporarily put for
Right.
maybe a week, and just like, just flashes your
Well,
speed.
and that's what my husband said, like, maybe if there was just a cop right by our road a few times,
Well-
people get in their head that cops are in that neighborhood, I'm gonna drive slower. I don't know what the answer is. I was just very frustrated.
All right. Something is occurring to me, because I was on that tour with Joan Jacquet and Bud Dombrowski. But do I see you wanting to say something, Kurt? Anyone else before?
I was just thinking, what about, is it possible to do some of the things like they do on the side of the road, or does that affect the roads a lot, like the bump-like things, If you get off the road, could you do that possibly on some of the roads, or does it not, does the roads, you know what I'm talking about,
Those
right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking
rumble
about.
strips.
The rumble strips, the bumpers.
Yeah, I mean, when you come off certain road and then you go over somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. That's something they do use for, an awareness.
A wake-up call.
Wake-up call for something that's coming up, and I mean, it's possible. I could talk to some people in traffic and see, what they might recommend, but I got a feeling it's going to be similar along the lines of what I, just commented on.
Max?
Sounds to me like the only reasonable thing is to go to the county and ask them to help post one of their radar machines around on our streets for a while,
Well, the county does that, not the
Yeah, but
police.
unfortunately.
Well,
We did that before. Unfortunately, it's temporary.
We don't have any other, there are
Right.
no permanent solutions, there just aren't.
I'm going to suggest, you have something?
I have a suggestion. You mentioned it would be helpful if there was a police officer there just once in a while to kind of, be a presence. One thing the sheriff's department has told us, the more people that call, the more likely they are to be there. If you could get Fran and yourself, and maybe some of the other neighbors with little children, to just kind of bombard the sheriff's department, I don't want this on video. Seriously though.
About
to
the
call.
time the school bus is coming.
Yeah, and they will respond. If they know there's a problem in a particular area, you just need to really make those phone calls and make them understand that you're having an issue there. Then they'll do that.
You could probably have the sheriff, park an unused car.
There you go.
It's a very, very effective thing.
All right, I'm going to suggest the following, because this is a new problem that, at least to us,
Right.
at this particular location. I'm going to suggest that you call Joan Jacquet and see if one or both she and Bud can come look at this particular
Bud's
location.
no longer with the county.
What?
Bud's no longer.
All right, well then Joan and anyone else she wants to bring. And we certainly should try to get another 25-mile-per-hour sign there. And we may be able to do something with a slow school children or something.
I have watch for children signs on both sides of my house.
You do have those.
We definitely put those in when I moved in.
Good, good. I mean, I was going to suggest,
Yeah.
all right. And then the other thing is, when Joan Jacquet came here a few years ago, they suggested we make the intersection of Lake Drive and Pine a stop street with a crossing. And you're close to that intersection.
Not close.
You're not that close.
No, parents,
Perrin,
So
well,
that was
I'm
on-
only 2 houses from Perrin, but it's far enough that
Okay. Well, so it's people coming
off of Rousby Hall
right
Road.
and not the other way.
It will, my guess is that it will come up in the summer because there is a house on our street, which I believe it hasn't turned into Leasing Cove by then. Yeah, and it's a house full of, I mean, it is
Okay.
ridiculous.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
All right.
The house kind of looks like a similar version of my wood house, but it's further down the street
Is
and,
it on the left as it approaches Perrin, or just past Perrin?
no, it's on the right.
Right.
And they've always got like a little dog in the street, and I mean, those people drive so fast, and they come in and out of my street 20 times a day.
Okay, so, all right, we have a menu of things we're gonna try, and we will start by calling the county and say that this seems to have built up, you know, as more houses are built or occupied, things like this happen. See if we can get someone in for a quick look. We'll coordinate with you, we'll come back to the board and let Fran know that the two of you and anyone else you can get should be calling the sheriff's.
Well, there is a lady who lives around the corner from me with 4 kids who has said, she actually went out and bought those big giant neon green men with the flag. She sticks it right out in the road. She said, I don't care if they hit it, at least it's not my kid. She lives on Mills Creek. That's where she's at with it. She's obviously not here because she's got my 3 kids up at a baseball field. And I came in to talk about my street. But it's right around the corner and it's the same thing. I mean, she's saying the same thing.
Well, then, we'll get together with the neighbors, make sure you're all
Yeah.
calling, and it's,
What's her street name?
They live
She's on
on
Mills
Mills Creek,
You'll see it right on the curb, Mills Creek Drive.
that blue house.
The first house, yeah,
Yeah.
she's got a little person sign.
Yeah.
It's not out all the time, though, I don't know where it is.
She only puts it out when her kids are out there,
Oh,
because otherwise it just becomes, you know, people drive by and that sign's there and there's no kids, then,
yeah, I haven't seen the kids out there with the sign either.
yeah.
all right, Ms. Webster will stay in touch with you and trade phone numbers, and you'll be calling county.
Yeah, I'll call the county. I think we have a speed limit sign in the shed, but I'll check, and if we don't, I'll,
They just get them to put it in, yeah.
Right.
Okay,
So
and
we
the
can
lot,
start-
I mean, the lot next to me is vacant, so I mean, gonna go look right there. Put balloons on it or something.
Okay, we'll do something. We'll do some things.
Okay, and then I'll call the sheriffs. You can
We'll
call.
call
When you
Fran
have, give them
and,
the license plate numbers, you know,
Yeah,
you call them in.
Right.
Record them down and say, you know, record them down for a week, you know, this guy's done this every day for the last week or whatever, you know. It's the only way they'll listen to you.
yeah, you know, I'm gonna suggest, if you have access to email, you may wanna email the story to the sheriff, because, I mean, it does make quite a story, you know, copy us and, or you can send it to us and we'll send it to the sheriff, whatever. Because it documents the fact that it's a growing problem and just how close it's come to hurting children.
okay,
Okay,
all right,
anyone else here? Okay,
okay.
Thanks.
I'm gonna be in even bigger pain because somebody's parked behind me. That's my blue Cadillac, so whoever has
you're
that.
boxed in?
Yes, and I have to go.
Where
I'm sorry.
am I? Me at the end?
I don't know, it's not me, I'm.
Not me.
Fine.
That's why you get here early. I figured it out when I
You
was.
figured it out, fine.
Doesn't
Thank
take me
you.
long.
Usually I go across.
So should I just come to the next meeting or keep in touch with?
Just stay in touch.
Can you?
And you rest assured that Fran will be at the next meeting and she'll stay in touch with you.
Yeah,
But I would, since you have, you know, you're very polite and thorough and careful, so write up an email and we'll have a record and we'll work with you and the sheriff and Public Works.
thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You do the same, thank you.
Good luck at the ball game.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
did we approve the agenda? Yes, we did.
Yes.
Okay, it's time for somebody to provide a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes, both minutes,
Second.
seeing as there's no comments.
All right,
Everyone in favor?
Larry says aye.
Okay.
Unanimous.
You said aye, Mike. We're approving the minutes.
I presume you approve the minutes.
Okay.
2 sets, okay,
We're good.
all right.
Office update? Okay.
You're awfully kind.
As many of you may know or remember, we had a lot of trouble in April with Comcast phone service. And it took a lot of phone calls and a lot of tech visits to get them to resolve the issue. They finally did. And I called and we received a $105 credit for that time period.
You're giving us 1,000
I know,
for your time.
I agree. I'll have to call them.
What did they correct?
First, they dug under the road and replaced the cable.
Oh,
They replaced,
big job.
well, the first thing they did was replace the modem, because I have 2 modems. Then they replaced the cable. Then they replaced the line from the house to the phone. Anyway, don't make me
It's
relive
all
it.
new. It's all
It's
new.
terrible. It's all new. It's all brand new. It's working. Not good. Okay. On an unhappier note, the beach picnic tables were put upside down into the water a couple of weeks ago. Mrs. Joe called to tell me that. Had Dustin go down and retrieve them because he has a truck. And they were damaged to the point that they were falling apart, so he took them to the dump. And I would suggest they're not replaced until we get the security cameras installed there. So there are no tables there.
Concrete tables.
Yeah, exactly. As of today, we have 729 members in good standing for the upcoming fiscal year.
That's ahead of last year.
That compares to a total of 617, I think, for this current fiscal year. So we're ahead of last year, this current year. You remember the property owner on Mill Creek Drive who erected the fence in the right-of-way?
Yes.
I sent him the bill for that. I sent it certified mail. It was returned. I sent him a letter explaining that if it was not paid, he's due to pay us $500 for the removal of the wall. He did not respond, so I sent him another letter per instruction from the last board meeting by certified mail. I have not received the signature card back. I also have not received the letter, so that's a good thing. So when I receive one or the other, I'll be filing the claim, unless he's paid the claim, unless he's paid the $500. Also, the newsletter is in progress.
Wait, before we finish, did you give him a deadline?
I did. I gave him 30 days, and that's up today.
Okay.
But I thought I should wait until I either receive that letter as non-deliverable or the signature card itself. So the newsletter is in process, and it's going to be a 4-page newsletter focusing on the budget, and it will include a list of the roads for rejuvenation, if that's approved tonight.
Okay,
That's it.
good. Round table.
No comment.
Nothing.
I have nothing to report.
The only thing I can say is that as far as SCLT putting in check dams and the drainage from Pilot Lake, we now have all of the vinyl logs available. So the next thing we need to do is, our last meeting we talked about clearing, having someone clear a path to the right of way so we can get down to the area where we can check.
That was done shortly after.
I was like that yesterday, I just saw it, I didn't see anything done.
You didn't see anything done?
You're talking about on Pilot down to the
There's a road right away at Pilot that.
Bowie Way. It's called Bowie Way.
Well,
Down.
it is, but there's nothing been done there.
Maybe he
I
didn't
was down
understand
there
where it was to
yesterday.
be.
I was down there yesterday. All there is a jungle of brush down
I suggest, instead of doing secondhand with Paul, that Rita gets the two of you together,
Yeah,
there. Okay.
so he knows exactly what to do.
maybe I didn't explain it very clearly to him what it is that needs to be done.
He's been out clearing someplace.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, so most of that stuff is ready to go. I kind of like to wait until Gary gets back so Gary can get involved in this, because we both went down and looked at the sites.
Right.
But it's all ready to go.
If for those of you who may not follow this, I'll talk about it more when we get to the environmental committee. Okay. Committee reports, action items, bunch of pending things. Do we have an action item?
I have not put one together. There hadn't been anything, and now there are.
Okay.
The rejuvenation has previously been approved by this board and been in the budget for the future years. The price is approximately the amount of money that's been budgeted. I don't see any reason for any further action from the board. Just sign the contract for this year and get it done.
You sent that out, you sent it to everyone.
Yes.
Okay, so it's about $45,000. It's
46.
what this was we wrote a long-term contract with them the last time, so we didn't have to go through this every single time, because they're the only ones who use a viable formulation. And it's $46,016.
46,438.29.
Is that 70 cents per linear foot in addition?
For Pepsi only.
In addition.
That's what it always is, 70 cents.
So what is the total? Did they-
46,
They bill for the full
438.29.
total until
Ah.
they do the calculation.
46, 438.29.
All right, what I have here is projected costs. If we look
That's fine.
further back, that 46,000 includes a projection of 2,000 linear crack feet to fill. So it's about that, give or take a percent, I guess.
Couple pennies per square yard.
Okay,
I just want to comment on something.
Yes.
Just because I don't know if you realize it, because I'm simply bringing it to your attention. There was 2 proposals given from
Same company.
the same company
Right,
for differing amounts.
right.
And the only thing I guess they're trying to sell you on trying to do the rest, the balance of the roads.
Exactly.
Because the second one was a savings of $20,600.
that wasn't this year.
Yeah, they,
I'm confused.
they gave you a proposal for another 25% of the roads, which I drew up.
Right,
And they also gave you a proposal for the balance of the roads, which
Right.
is like a half of the roads. Essentially, they gave you, they're asking in their first proposal for the 25% of $1.17 a square yard. $1.17 a square yard, which is, and for the balance of the roads, they're charging 95 cents per square yard. So they're actually cutting their price considerably to try to get you to
to
say,
get the
hey,
50%,
just.
the whole rest of it done now. Is that?
Yes, they're trying to get you to say, hey, we can save some money if we do it all now.
Right.
And not that I'm recommending that, because, you have a budget and all that, I'm just making sure that you understand and bring it to your attention that that's what they've done.
What is,
Whatever you decide to do, is your decision.
I get lost in this thing, but there's a total, okay, so they're saying that if we do the whole rest of it, instead of only half of the rest of it, they'll charge us about $79,000 for the whole rest of it. That's a considerable saving.
Well, my,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, my projected total cost sheet for that balance was 98,000 and change.
Right,
And their proposed price to do that was 78,800.
so that's a.
There's about a $20,000 savings. For the 25%, it was within $1,000 my projected cost and their proposed cost. So
25% is the $46,000
Correct,
price.
correct.
Thank you.
Right. Any other comments, Max?
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know about going ahead with a second year. That would take a bit of discussion again about combining years together. The original strategy was to do this over a 5-year period. I guess you were already accelerated into 4, but the reserve study and everything calls for 5 years, and it's not due to be done again for that many years. So if you now do a second group of roads all at one time, it just pushes forward the next time that some of those have to be done again. So, it's a matter of strategy as to what we're gonna be doing regarding the future of this,
in a way, my gut feeling is that, Max is right in one regard, and there's a couple reasons that I passed off these other roads, the balance for the next year. One is that they've all got striping on them, so if they're rejuvenated, we have to consider the additional cost of striping them. And they also include roads that we paved last year.
Well, no, we wouldn't do that.
Well, I don't know that I think if you're gonna do the balance next year, I would consider doing those roads because if you know, when we pave a road and it sits for 2 or 3 years, you'll watch it bleach out. I have a pretty good opinion of that rejuvenation product as far as when it goes on the roads, it seals it. And it really does slow down that aging process of it by keeping it flexible. And I wouldn't, you know, if by next year, I would go ahead and do them. I think it's gonna be beneficial to them.
Well, I lost
Excuse me,
what,
Max, I was gonna say something, but if you still feel you need the floor before I say something, go ahead.
well, I was trying to clarify what he's saying. We've got a schedule to do rejuvenation this year and next year, that is next fiscal year after the one we're talking about.
Right.
In 17, and you're talking about we're doing the 17 job in 16 and paying for it there. But is that what you're saying now? Just by doing that last batch ahead of time, you're just saying, or?
Well, I don't know that it's, I mean, you do have a savings, you know, now, but, you know, we did establish a precedent as far as, you know, the length of time, and I did, you know, specifically delay roads for certain reasons, you know, so, you know, even though there is a savings, it is, you know, you're pushing the rejuvenation on roads that may not be.
All right, Dennis, I think I'm next, because I did put my bid in, and then I'll turn to you. We had, months ago, we had some of us had some informal conversations with the county staff, Tim Hayden and the lawyer. I'm not sure if the county executive was there, Terry. But this comes out of our STD, and Max is absolutely correct. The STD calls for 25% a year for 4 years. We raised in our discussions with the county the fact that this product is guaranteed for a 5-year interval to protect the roads. And we're now 8 years out for the balance of the roads since they have been rejuvenated before, which means that the surface is leakier and more brittle, and we have more traffic every year because we have more homes every year. So the reason we even raised this with the county staff was, is it possible to get ahead of ourselves and finish this up quickly rather than let the last 25% of the roads deteriorate possibly further than they would if they weren't rejuvenated now? Because it would be spending ahead of ourselves on the STD. And Tim said, if you have the carryover, the source of money, he didn't think we'd object. Now, we'd have to go back and put this to the county and say, look, this is a real saving before we make a decision about that, if we're going to. So I'm not saying we can just make a decision at this meeting, but personally, as a chemist, understanding the process, I'm with Jeff. I think we're going to save ourselves repaving costs on some of the remaining roads because they'll be protected better. Dennis?
I just want to make certain I understand what I'm looking at. I have one document that says the $46,000 quote.
That's for.
I have a second document that I printed out that was on the site for $98,000. Are you saying that the $98,000 they're reducing to 75?
78.
Whatever the 70 number is.
Those documents you're looking at are the ones I put together.
Oh.
And those are my projected costs before we ask for proposals.
That's the.
So is this 78.8?
That's for the 98.
That's for the
there.
98, so it would be 78.8 plus the 46?
No.
Or is the 46?
No, that's total for all the rest of the roads.
So 78 would be the total that includes what the 45 is just,
Correct.
that's a
Yes.
$33,000.
That's
add-on.
$20,000 and.
Well, 78 up from 45.
You're going from 98 to 78.
He's saving you $20,000, you're just adding $30,000.
Yeah, I'm doing it, I'm coming from the other.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Same thing, same thing. Okay.
All right, yeah, I'm not suggesting that that's what you should necessarily do, but I just want you to be aware that those are both out there, so I wasn't sure how much everybody understood that.
Max?
Well, I appreciate the concern over the roads, but hopefully the road committee that put together the list of the roads to be done is this last group that we're talking about, that last 25% you're saying, hopefully that was the last 25% that was done 7 years ago. I personally don't know, but I would assume that we're doing them in roughly the same order, so that we're getting a periodic repeat of the rejuvenation on the same set of roads, instead of helter-skelter.
Somewhat, yes, and the roads that are in this group now to be done are the ones that are, I consider, in the most need, you know, compared to what's left.
They're the ones in this, yeah, you prioritize, so the 25% that would be $46,000 are the highest priority in terms of need.
Right, in a collated area, because you don't want to have a road over here, road over there, road over here, they'll be running all over the place. You have to try to work both everything together.
But Max, if I may respond as well, the fact is that I believe that a good chunk of the remaining roads, the last 25%, have been out there without protection. It's been more than 5 years since they were protected for a good chunk of them.
Yeah, but not necessarily. We've repaved some.
You know, I'm saying a good chunk.
And some of them, you know, for instance, Lake Drive, I consider to be one of the better conditioned roads that we have. You know, so those are all long roads, a fair amount of mileage. You know, so I don't think we're in a critical area where you necessarily feel you have to do.
I want to mention, I know you're, just a second.
Larry's kind of the red.
Oh, you're, all right, just a second. And on that point, there are a significant number of cracks appearing on Lower Lake Drive that were not there last year. So it is under stress. I just want to, go ahead.
Oh, the only thing you'd mentioned is striping, and I mean, what kind of additional costs would that be on those roads?
Well, not that significant. You can, I mean, I would think you
Maybe
could
get
have.
them to throw it in?
No, they don't do striping,
Oh,
so
okay.
you would have to get a separate contractor to do that. You know,
WW striping is
out of
what
the place you've had to do it in the past. So it's an additional, it would be, yeah, but not, I mean, we're only talking, and you could look up.
5 or
if you could-
6,000, I want to
Yeah,
say, for what we've had done.
How much?
Not that much.
I want to say 5 or 6,000, but I'd have to check it.
Don't we have our own striping machine now?
No, we looked into that, but,
Oh, Max?
Yeah, this goes back quite a long time, but original, again, the strategy of this whole thing was that the rejuvenation would not need to be done but about every 7 years. The fact that they guarantee it for 5 is nice, but the original strategy was to rejuvenate every 7 years on a recurring schedule, not every 5 or not every 4. I mean, if you do it every 4, you're actually just constantly rejuvenating. And I don't know that if that's not excess or not. I'll leave it up to the chemist to figure all that out, but the roads have been taken care of very well, and what you're looking right now is a product of rejuvenation 7 years ago.
Right.
That's where we are today, and other than the ones you've already redone.
And I think there is a certain, you know, reality to that in that it does last for a certain period, a length of time, and if you rejuvenate too soon, it simply doesn't absorb as much. You
Do
know,
you think
so
we would be rejuvenating too soon if we did it all at once?
I don't. I think it's not going to hurt anything to wait. I'm sorry to muck up the whole thing. I was just trying to bring it to your
No,
attention
no.
that, you know,
I didn't understand
there was a savings in the proposals. That's all.
And I'm gonna get another clarification.
Yes, please.
Since you said these are your numbers,
Yes.
and that there's a $78,000 number from them for everything, what is their number? Is their number for doing this the same as your number?
Yes, you see,
Some-
their original proposal to us, was, when we actually had the bidding done, was that they would be charging $1.15 a square yard. So they dropped their price to 95 cents a square yard in the proposal to do the balance of the roads.
I understand the balance part. So the front, this 25%, their number is the $46,000? Same as your number?
Yeah, my number,
Or
my
approximately
number is,
same.
what's my number there? It's,
46,035 plus, so it's a total of 46,438.
and,
Theirs is what? Similar?
no, that's my number. Their number
I know.
was,
46016?
yeah, I mean, they were close, yes. 46016 was
Okay,
their
yeah,
number.
it's the same.
Yeah, so they're right there.
So we have to decide whether we want to spend 46 or 78.
Correct.
And to do 78, to do everything has benefit or has negative?
It has a instant gratification of monetary
I'm not
benefit.
looking instant gratification. I'm looking for the sake of we had a plan to do these over sequentially over a period of time. I recall it being, that's the best way to do it. Not so much, we don't have the money to do it right away, but that was the best way to do it sequentially.
And I don't think there's any need to change that
Okay,
unless you want to.
no, I got it.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
either.
I
Okay.
come from a different viewpoint as a chemist, that most of the last 25% were rejuvenated about the same time as the third 25%. And I'm watching deterioration on unrejuvenated roads since the winter is over. My neighbors are reporting it to me. And I feel more comfortable as a board member being able to protect the community, I'm not done with this, by doing it all at once. And the saving, you know, I wasn't even aware of the saving. That's, you know, when we went to Tim Hayden and Norris and Terry Shannon, we were wondering for protection's sake. However, as I said before, it was a tentative thought before. We didn't know that we had possible savings. And we spent a lot of money on snow removal last year. And Max, wouldn't this have to come out of the STD carryover?
The cost of rejuvenating the roads would come out of the revenues of the association. The amount paid by the STD is fixed by the Board of County Commissioners.
Right?
Any other amount would have to come out of DPPOA funds, that's all.
You don't think
Don't we have a carryover?
you don't think I could call Robin and Robin could clear it through Tim or Terry or what have you to spend that extra money, even though it's,
Well, if they want
Off
to approve
budget.
the expenditure,
Yeah, it
that's
has
the
to be
step to
approved.
go through. I'm just saying that, we can pay for that out of some other
as
funds.
long as it's a capital expense, they usually don't have any issue.
I think they'd be happy to save money. Yes, Larry?
You know, if we get another real tough winter, we could have some real major problems. And I mean, need the money somewhere, really seriously somewhere else. So I think we should just stick to our original plan, our original budget, and go with it. We might need that money somewhere else, and if it's gone, I mean, tough winters are really tough on roads. The cracks and everything, they freeze and break up and.
Well, to say nothing,
And that's not something rejuvenation is going to help necessarily
No.
prevent.
besides
No.
which we have to spend money on snow removal if we have a, and, you know, we didn't budget for a mega winter again. But, I'm not hearing a landslide to try to get the whole thing done at once. I may be the only one in the room who feels it's warranted on a chemical engineering basis. But again, we'd have to make sure we have the money, we have to have some carryover for extra snow removal if we need it, and we'd have to go back to the county quietly. Dennis,
I move we proceed as originally planned and do the 25% program.
Second it.
did you second it?
Yes.
All right.
I mean, he's advised us. I mean,
Okay.
all right.
Second.
Well, you had it, but anyway, you know, I hadn't read it in that much depth either, so, anyway,
So we're gonna do the 46.
That's my motion, to do the 46.
I'll second it.
It's already been
No,
seconded.
all right, I'm calling a discussion period, and I'd like to ask a question. I think we have to vote on the 46 so we can nail down a schedule anyway.
That's a primary concern too, because if we're gonna, it's gonna put us in the same situation as the last couple of years, which you don't wanna get into.
Right, we
And
don't
I
want to
think
be
you
doing it
try to
at the
do
last
this-
minute when the snow is falling.
Yeah, you want this done by July, or in July
Yes, ma'am.
sometime.
As I stated first thing up, this has already been approved by the board to do this, the money's already been in the budget. All we need you to do is somebody sign the contract. We don't need another vote, we don't need even another discussion, unless there's a huge change that we need to discuss.
You're here.
All right, in that case,
I remove my motion.
you what?
I withdraw my motion.
Okay,
According to what Mac, and you need to withdraw your second.
all right, so be it. Now,
Just sign.
I
I'm trying to
will-
get us moving.
I will nonetheless
Jeez.
look into it a little more and call up Paverex and say if by some miracle we think, you know, it may come back to the board, but anyway, it will, we'll still go ahead and give them the go-ahead for the,
46.
get our time, you know, down.
Okay.
Sign the
Well,
contract.
you're comfortable, we don't need a motion?
Yeah, I think
No,
that's
I'm
right.
in terms of going
We
around.
just need,
Oh, no, that's fine, it's in the
Okay.
budget, absolutely.
All right, and that's it. All right, next,
So I can call Doug McKenzie tomorrow and tell him.
absolutely.
we just signed the contract.
Okay. Next. Show your work.
Okay, CA Bean is, continuing to plod along to, get their, topsoiling and shoulder work completed.
That's when they
have.
did so late last fall.
They haven't even done the counties yet, so we should feel pretty happy. But they only have really rain drive and pilot to do, and they have a few things they gotta fix. But they are working on it,
Slowly.
and it's getting done finally.
And you're having to watch them, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty tough working with Dean. I gotta say, I haven't been real impressed, and I suppose you guys probably aren't either, as far as their being able to get stuff done in a timely fashion. I'm surprised the county doesn't do so much. But anyways, that's been continuing.
Let me just say, we took them as the lowest bidder, and we didn't realize it would be so much trouble, and
Well,
we're way behind. So we'll just remember for the
Finish the
future.
contract, that's all.
Right,
Okay.
so, two other
Is this
just
yours or mine?
small
Yours.
items, that I was asked to speak on. One is, 352 Gray Drive, where, the homeowner had, some years back, before my time, poured a concrete driveway and was told they could not connect it, the apron portion to the asphalt. So they never did, it just stops, like 10 feet from the asphalt. And they apparently called Rita and asked about whether we can put some CR6 in there, because it kind of dips down between there. And they were told some years ago by one of the predecessors of me that they could not tie into the street, which I don't know why.
This was like 20 years ago,
Oh,
the old
it's
road
been-
company,
yeah, I
it
guess.
wasn't
Okay.
anybody.
Okay, what's the solution?
The solution is the next, I told Rhea that we will make an effort the next time we have a contractor doing work in the neighborhood to put a little bit of CR6 down, take care of the problem, and it's no big deal. The only other item I have is this, issue that George Clemens was in here and we spoke on, as far as about his house at 189 Leeson Cove and flooding, from water coming across the street. And I've spent a long time looking at this and shooting grades and levels and to see what's going on there. And basically you have 3 lots altogether, and the road sheet flows. That means the water drains from one side of the road directly across. There is no crown in the road. It's a natural drainage system which she flows all this water down towards the creek. And there is a pipe at the end of one of these 3 lots and a low point, which goes under the road. And at one time, they were having a lot of issues with water carving out in between these 2 lots there. And they planted some shrubbery and blocked that pipe so that the water doesn't, it just seeps through there. And it probably during a heavy flood overflows the road at that low point and goes on down there anyways. And I found the pipe, and the pipe is 15 feet off the edge of pavement, and it's buried 3 feet in the ground. So and RIA has no record of any kind of drainage easement for that property. So in order to go in there and clear that, would require quite a bit. You'd have to get an easement, you'd have to get on somebody's property and dig it and expose it and all that. But the bigger picture is that I don't think I cannot recommend, because what George Clemens wants to do, Mr. Clemens wants to cut a swale to carry all the water down to where that pipe goes under the road. And what that does is that initiates concentrated flow. Instead of it being spread out and sheet flowing across all these properties down to the water, it's going to concentrate it all to one location, and you're going to really start having an issue with erosion going into the creek. So I can't recommend doing anything like that. And according to our new agreement for a grading permit with the county, if we were to want to try to do something like that, there would have to be an engineering review and computations provided for the county to look at, where they can assess the overall scope of the amount of land and drainage from that land and trying to put it into into one location. I did have a meeting, just on the aside, with Erica Jackson in engineering and Ron Babcock from Soils and Conservation this week, as far as an agreement of understanding for a 2-year blanket permit for us to do storm drainage projects. And I haven't got it yet, and you're going to be CC'd on it when we do get it, but we did come to an overall understanding that has to be drawn up, but it's going to include some stipulations and some conditions. Basically, when we do grading exemption projects, there's not going to be any review other than what I normally provide for the county. But if we go over the 5,000 square foot threshold, where you fall into the actual grading permit, it's going to require an engineering review, or if we divert water from a natural drainage area into another. Regrading swales is okay, but moving water from one area to another that it didn't normally before is going to require more review. And this is one of those situations,
So no matter what, this will fall over the threshold. Is that what you're saying?
It would fall under the threshold where we're actually conveying water from one area where it's been going to another area, and it's going to involve, and it will be considered concentrated flow, because we'll be putting all that water into one location. So.
Max, you had something?
Is it possible to just work an easement on his property to divert the water somehow away from the house and that? I mean, just for his property? I mean, he'd certainly give you the easement, I'm sure.
Well, everything just kind of sheet flows through that property. There's not, across all those properties.
Yeah, but he wouldn't be getting everybody else's, he'd just be getting that much coming to him.
He's not really getting everybody else's, he's getting
What's directly in front of him.
What's
yeah.
across the street from him, essentially.
But if we diverted that somehow around his house so it doesn't eat into his foundation and his doors there, it goes around somehow.
Well,
can we do that?
Well, we don't really, I don't think it's your responsibility to grade around a house. You get a drainage easement where you concentrate that drainage, but that's going to be tough to do in those really flat areas coming off the road. And I did, when I first met with him last year, give him some advisement as far as to regrade around his house, because basically he had a bad grade where as soon as that water went around the house, it came right back against the foundation. And I told him he needed to raise the stoop and elevate his grade so everything carried. I mean, whenever you have a house, you should have a foot of fall away from your house in the first 12 feet, ideally. That's the way you should have your structure graded.
So are we, if I'm hearing that last part correctly, we advised him on what he could be doing, and he still wants us to do something?
Well, no, he actually
And it's
did.
not something that we're gonna do?
No,
I'm not
he
clear
actually,
on this.
he actually did do some work since I spoke to him the first time.
But he
But
still thinks
obviously
he has a
the
problem?
He's still,
Obviously, the solution, it hasn't been solved yet, because he's still coming to us for help.
well,
So-
he had pictures, which he brought in the last time,
Yeah.
of a lot of water flowing
Right.
through his yard, but I tell you, we've had some major storms in the past year, some unusual ones, and I think everybody's experienced something similar to that. You know, I just can't recommend cutting the swale on the other side of the street and conveying all that water to one individual. And the county would never agree to it, I can tell you right now.
Well, we can't make the water flow back to that swale anyway. We can't do that because it's sloped toward his.
Well, if you
those lots
collect
anyway.
that, what he wants to
You'd
do
have
is.
to redo the road.
What he wants to do is put a swale on the opposite side of the street, so it would convey that water away,
Away.
down
Yeah, but the
the
water
road.
that's coming on the street, and we're talking about the rainfall on the street, that's what you're talking the sheet flow, that's what's going across
Yeah, but that is.
there. There is no swale on the other side, so there isn't really any flow of water coming from another source.
It's coming from
It's
the
just-
land, the property across the street.
Well, yeah, it is a little higher over there, but it is vegetated and stuff, so it's not like
It's not water off the road.
running
it's
water, it's just the water that would seep and it goes across the road and into these other, into the low side houses. But in order to create a swale there, I mean, I don't know how, I thought it was just gonna be higher and you wouldn't be able to do it anyway, because all the water that's landing on the roadway, it's a 18-foot roadway, that's a lot of water. that
But
comes
that's
down.
not the water that's creating this problem, it's really.
Really?
I think it's the water that's coming from all the properties across the road. You get these super heavy rains, ground gets saturated, comes down to the road, and then goes ahead and spills over because the sheet
All
flows.
right, let me ask something. Is he getting water in his house?
Not that I'm aware of.
But he doesn't want it on his lawn?
Well, it runs around to a back door and everything there where it did flood in there before. Now, he'd already made some improvements to that prior to even our discussing this. And where he tried to divert water around, but in a heavy rain, it's still not adequate, that's all. Because the water, it just comes right down the street and off of his driveway, right down his lawn. I think the only way is to get him, you know, to regrade around the house more.
That's what I would
And just to maybe draw him a little plan or something, you know, so that he'll know what he needs to do anyway.
Right, and
Don't-
we've had
don't
issues
just
with
throw
other
out-
people, even Fran had a similar issue.
Anybody on the low side of those roads has gotta have a similar drainage problem.
I mean, water runs downhill.
The
and,
people on Leslie.
Yeah,
uh,
you're suggesting we do nothing on our right-of-ways. You're suggesting that he do some more regrading and hopefully that'll solve the problem.
But I think that you
Is
should
that-
just continue to talk with him and
I mean, I.
draw him a little plan or something,
I
see
mean,
what
I
you need to
feel
do
I
around
need
your
to,
house.
I
you
need
know.
to see him anyways to tell him, you know, what I'm telling you today, just so, because I told him I'd keep him informed as to what's going on. And when I do that, I could, you know, offer some additional help and
Sounds
suggestions.
Well,
All
I
right.
think there's just not much that we can do about it.
Right,
I mean, it's
just-
just gonna create a bigger problem or more problems with the county
Right,
to
that's
try
right.
to pursue
And it'll
than
be-
anything else, so.
And cost money for us. All right, so it sounds like the answer is to continue working with him as a courtesy. Okay. I think that there is no new roads committee information, and Gary is not here, but I'm sort of his backup on the planning committee, and I'd like to give that report. Now, I need 3 pages, and I'm all coming apart with it. Okay. You should have, okay, 3 pages. You had,
Everybody has it.
oh, okay. The 3 pages are something I sent out by email in the middle of the day called Joint Planning and Finance Committee Report to the Board. And this report is about the non-STD budget for FY 2015. And do you have an extra? You don't have it? Everybody should have
Right there, here it is, here it is, here it is.
it. Right, now everyone has it. Okay, good. Okay, now, this thing has a table in it, and it also refers to last year's 2014 budget for non-SCD expenses that was approved by the community in June. And that's a page from the newsletter. And that was approved. And this is a printout of the treasurer's, Max's, simplified spreadsheet, which came out of the Joint Planning and Finance Committee meeting. And what he is conveying in the last column, labeled 2015, is the new non-STD assets and expenses tabulation that would then go into the newsletter for approval by the community in June. And I want to note that there were a whole bunch of meetings of the planning committee and various committees and the finance committee. We went back and forth, and finally we had a joint meeting. And at that point, we agreed on the expenses that the treasurer has provided in the 2015 column. And he sent that to you sometime last week. So what I wanted to do was, since this is done at a high level and doesn't break down the categories in detail, I just wanted to, as the joint committee report, explain what this is and what you get. First of all, and I'm going to look only, I selected only the income
Drum point,
I have an extra copy. This might be Dwayne's, so this is
Table.
his column.
Okay. Okay. She's in a meeting, no, you can't. Okay, I'll talk about it. Okay.
I hope it's not an emergency. I think we better wait.
Okay, I'll let her know that.
But I do have an extra copy of the joint committee report if anyone wants to have it in the visitors.
Do you want to look at it?
No.
That wasn't Dwayne calling in, and you're okay?
I'm good.
Oh, okay, I didn't know
It was
whether
Paul.
it's an emergency or.
No, it was Paul about your yard.
Oh, okay. Max?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out for everybody's information that this is not the opinions of the joint committee at all. The finance committee does not agree with these statements made here and never even considered them, so it is not a result of the joint conference between the two committees.
Max, I want to make sure that the board hears this report. Now, I want to point out, and I'd like to give the report first, and I do, with all respect, beg to differ with you. These numbers come exactly out of your spreadsheet, and if we have the time, I can go through it. But if we look at the income, for example, on this small table, first of all, at the bottom, there is a footnote that talks about the treasurer's assumptions about the compliance in our payment of fees and mandatory fees and covenant fees and so on. And that was printed on the spreadsheet that you brought to the meeting, the joint meeting. And here is the spreadsheet, and if anybody would like to examine it, you can find those assumptions on page 1. Now, what it says is the treasurer recommends that we think in terms of 85% compliance for covenant fee based on past experience, 85% compliance for mandatory assessment fee for developed lots, and 50% compliance for mandatory assessment fee for undeveloped lots. And so with those assumptions and a number of covenanted and uncovenanted lots that RIA has established and used for her billing, and the covenant fees expected in 2015 are $13,413. That's the income with those assumptions. And if you look at Max's spreadsheet, there it is in the right-hand column. The DPPOA dues expected are, dues which became mandatory assessment are expected to bring in $53,735, and there it is in the last column of Max's spreadsheet. And Max has put down the figure of $7,000 for the SURE funds that will be provided to us from the county, and there it is in Max's spreadsheet in the right-hand column. Then so what I did was I simply summed those values. Max did not provide a subsum in his spreadsheet, but if anybody has a pocket calculator, I think you can see that that's going to come out, even without a calculator, to about $74,000, which it does. Then the expenses that Max worked out, summing up the various spreadsheets that were brought by the planning committee, by Kurt and myself working with Rhea and Barry. Max's came out with expenses for O&M for covenant of $4,351, and that's in the right-hand column. And then dues, which was dues, now mandatory assessment, he's counting expenses against that of $66,366. That's in the right-hand column of his sheet. And SURE funds, he's counting $13,001. Now, some of these numbers are bigger than the incoming numbers. And that's why the treasurer's spreadsheet shows carryover funds as part of the assets. And you have his spreadsheet for several days. So what I did then was I totaled the non-STD expenses. Again, I totaled the numbers from Max's spreadsheet, and I came out with his total, which is $83,717. I actually came out with $718, but I figured that was a rounding error, so I used Max's number. And then I simply subtracted the expenses expected, $83,000, from the income, $74,000, and I got $9,569. Now that means that we're going to have to draw down some of the end of the year carryover. And I did the same thing for FY 2014. And I used the numbers in the budget, the community approved. I'm not gonna go line by line the way I did before. And what I came out with there was last year we came out in deficit budgeting from against income of $16,000. So this is an improvement. So the gist of this all is, am I having any objection to these? These are all your numbers.
I never had an objection to the numbers.
Okay, good. Okay, so what happened then is last year we knew we were going into deficit budgeting, the board knew it, the community approved it, and we had to draw down from various carryover sources and saving $16,000. So this year, even though we have greater income expected from the mandatory assessment, we're still going to be in deficit budgeting, but it's cut way, way back to 9,000. And that was the goal of the planning committee. So now I will tell you the actual cost accounting that went into these total expenses. And they are in Max's spreadsheet and Barry's spreadsheet. If anyone would like to examine them after the meeting, you can find them there. But for one thing, 65% of the covenant fees this year will be applied in FY 2015 to road-related admin costs. We were only doing strictly road-related before. And that's why you see O&M of 4,351, I'm sorry. Right, whereas we expect 13,000. So really, the bottom line message is here. So we're beginning to charge admin back to the covenant fees, road-related admin. The legal expenses that we expect to have laid out this fiscal year 2014 are $15,000. We've spent $15,000 on legal expenses. I want to point out that the shed at the edge of the road was very expensive, and there have been other costs. We expected high legal fees, and we're projecting the same level of legal fees next year. The manager's salary has been increasing at the rate of 5% a year, which is actually a snail's pace to bring her up to parity based on her job description and the work she does. If anyone wants to talk to me about that privately, I'd be happy to, but we do that every year. Modest increases will be made in events, labor, and beach security for weekends. So we will still have beach security for weekends, and we'll have a little more money for that. We have a little more money for Paul to mow the lawn and mow right away down the street and so on. Hopefully, if you need to be away when we have Drum Point Day, we'll have a little money to replace some of what you did with Fran. Or if her son doesn't have the cookies this year. Okay. We have had no training and travel allotments for the last few years, which is not realistic. If Rhea had to take a course to update her office skills for new software that we had to change to, we couldn't pay the training. It would have to come out of contingency. So we've now put something in there. And Max had pointed out that the reserve called for $3,200 to be spent for office HVAC maintenance or replacement. HVAC in the office is okay, but we do have some problems. We had an energy audit. It's costing us a lot of money to run a very old refrigerator, a very old electric hot water heater. It's electric, isn't it? and to not have adequate insulation. And if we do in-house labor for those installations, and if we replace the mildewed carpet so we come up to OSHA standards in the back room in an area that had been flooded, we replace it with a hard flooring. We think we can do that for $2,400 with homegrown labor. So that comes below the $3,200. And finally, we have security cameras. We have remaining budget money to install them, and that's on the agenda for later. So that's simply my report of what happened in the Joint Planning Finance Committee meeting. Nobody has any comments or questions, we can go on to the next agenda item, which is
Finance Committee. Finance Committee emailed you all our report on the budget and the presentation we put into the newsletter for the public. The numbers are the same as Amy has described. She took them from my spreadsheet. The problem that we have most of the time is she insists on discussing deficit spending all the time, and that is not the way this organization operates and has not operated that way for the last 20 years. We have always paid all of our bills. We do not end up in the red at the end of the year because all she's doing is subtracting out all of our current assets and bank accounts and CDs from our current income. Well, true. Our dues have never really kept up with the cost of this community. The STD always made up for those. So we've been in deficit spending because we never made enough money for 20 or 30 or 40, 50 years, who knows. But that's not been the outlook of the association. Proper deficit spending would also allocate the deficits against the income versus the actual expenses, in which case the total deficit would be a whole lot more money because each one is in deficit except for the covenant fee right now. And the covenant fee problem has been fixed and will be fixed next year for sure. There'll be such an incursive of new income that none of this is even worth discussing. What the Finance Committee did was take the recommendations of the Planning Committee and go through it and adjust some numbers here and there, make up for the things that they overlooked, the things they didn't plan on, and the things they didn't provide enough money for. So many items were increased to the current levels of spending instead of reductions, and in particular some things moving from the STD budget to what we'll just call the DPPOA as a whole, the non-STD budget. Things like the salary of the manager, the Board of County Commissioners fixed the STD at the first year level of the 5-year plan that we gave them. And so we are stuck with any of the increases in any of the expenses from STD items for the second, third, fourth, and fifth years, which they did not allow for because they fixed their budget and multiplied it by 5. That's not the budget we gave them. So DPPOA has to pick up the difference in the expenses, such things as the additional utility costs for the operations of the association, all the internet costs, the police costs, everything else we had to pick up. So all of those items have been adjusted by the Finance Committee to make up for these things. I'm trying to pick out.
Max, they've been gradually adjusted every year of this new STD.
No, the STD has not been adjusted because the Board of County Commissioners fixed it in 5 years.
No, I said the non-STD funding cut coming out of the DPPOA monies have been adjusted since the first year of the STD. We've been adjusting our non-STD monies to compensate, not just this year.
I think what you're saying is that we've made up the differences out of other income sources. which is what
No.
we've been doing. We've gradually
Right, that's
shifted,
right, that's
we've
exactly.
gradually shifted the payments of
Right.
many STD expenses over to DPPOA,
Right,
using DPPOA funds, dues funds originally,
right,
or the SHUR funds, or covenant funds. And if you looked at the chart of accounts, you'll see that it keeps changing. That's because it keeps changing, so it reflects where the money's coming from, so that we can do proper fund accounting. So we constantly keep making those adjustments. We talked about the rejuvenation project. That's going to go on for another 4 years, or another 2 years anyway. Let's see, what else did I say here? Again, there's a shift in a lot of the accounts. Almost all of the OM&N is being moved over to covenants and our SHUR. The SHUR funding is not increasing very rapidly, so it's very minimal changes there. The snowfall had to come out of 3 or 4 accounts this year, and again, there is not really enough money put aside for the snowfall, for any expected snowfall, even as much as last year in the budget.
right.
Let's see. Okay, one thing that continues to happen is that the planning committee ignores multi-year funding for projects and so on. They don't look forward to the cost of rejuvenating in the next year, and the next year, and the next year, or the cost of road repairs in the continuing years. So that's one of the adjustments that I keep making. There is no set aside for the reserve funding at all. The board has not decided to do that, so therefore I listed at the bottom of mine the amount of money that still exists in the DPPOA, but in the next 2 to 3 years that will be totally expended also. So the board has not made a decision, and should make decisions on what to do with the excess income that's going to be generated through the 50/20 and the new covenant fee. Dennis, you have a question?
Yes, I do. This document is what's going in the newsletter.
Yes,
This is the budget that's in the newsletter.
right,
And the budget shows that we have a net, we're in the positive for 2014 and 2015.
Right.
And that could be, and based on our discussions, we could allocate some of that to reserve fund.
Yes.
Okay,
allocated
So-
to what?
reserve money. We can do something with what, if this budget happens the way we're planned it to happen, we'll have excesses at the end of the year. We can then allocate some of that as we see the need,
This board,
whatever it is. So if this is the budget, haven't we already approved this?
no,
No.
No.
you
Okay.
have to approve
So
this budget.
tonight is the vote
and-
on this budget.
And you
Yes.
have the opportunity to increase these items. I mean, you know,
I move we accept the budget as presented on this
Do
document.
I have a second?
I'll second
Now we can have discussion, if there's any discussion. I don't see any need, I don't see it, and I missed the last couple of meetings, I'm sorry, I wasn't at the last finance or the combined meeting. But we spent a lot of time getting here, and I agree with these numbers.
I'd like to call for the question. Everyone in favor?
I,
Okay, so we now have the 2015
budget,
budget of non-STD monies to put in the newsletter. And I'm ready to go to the environmental committee discussion. I want to,
good night, good to see you, thanks.
Thanks for talking to
Thanks.
George.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
I have been hearing through the grapevine that some people have questions about why the environmental committee is spending time on the siltation and nuisance code.
What, please?
And the environmental committee started responding 3.5 years ago to that problem because we've had complaints from several landowners whose homes front on that. And we were aware that these are very tough times, and any solutions that could be found would have to be at no cost to the board. And this question has come up every so often in a board meeting, and I did explain that the health of Mill Creek depends on what's happening in the tributaries. And right now, it's nearly impossible to grow oysters in Leeson's Cove because of the constant siltation for one reason or another, which I'm not going to go into. Now, I know that we don't have Leeson's Cove, it belongs to the state. But as I said, we have had homeowners who have repeatedly come to the board. And in fact, every so often I get an email message from Fran entitled Muddy Waters. And she sends me a picture of muddy waters after heavy rain. So, and the problem lies with the state. It's a combination of a watershed that's already there and is mostly occupied by SCLT and DPPOA conserved lots, which is, the runoff is carrying silt, and a problem with the culverts and the waterways in the state highway right away around Raspberry Hole Road. So finally, after 3.5 years, we got someone from the State Highway Authority, Dr. Laura Riddler, to come down, and we walked the area with Gary and Kurt, and SCLT, at no expense to us, has located biologs, and I'm going to let you explain that one more time, but I'll first say that the State Highway Authority is going to do something to clean up some of the swales and waterways. And what's in it for the State Highway Authority is they will count that toward the watershed implementation plan for bay improvement, and they will get brownie points for it. So it'll take them a couple of years to get more engineers down here, but they'll do something. Meanwhile,
Oh, okay. I mean, what we plan to do is, with Southern Calgary Land Trust, is that we've got a grant a partial grant from the Calgary County Garden Club to handle labor costs. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to put up porous permeable biolog check dams across some of the drainages to retain sediment, so that it doesn't go directly into the cove. So we're planning on putting these in a couple of locations, just off
To
Pilot
trap
Road.
it.
And it basically is to trap sediment. Or if you look at it in terms of what the county wants, or mega rain gardens, I guess you would call them. But basically the idea is just to break water velocity coming in runoff. So it isn't carrying as much sediment, and the sediment that is trapped behind the permeable dams. And then what we're going to do is we're partially looking at this in terms of trapping nutrients, potential nutrients going into the bay. So what we'll be doing is doing sediment sampling and having this sediment analyzed for the type of nutrients that are going in as well. So basically it's a way of retarding the sediment that's being carried by the runoff.
When is all this happening?
Hopefully next month. I mean, we're ready to go now, but I want to postpone it until when Gary gets back, because he's.
Oh, that's what you're talking about earlier.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
it's been several years in the making, but it's cooperative, it's win-win, doesn't cost us anything, and it's good for your fishing and oysters.
And it should work out all right if it's, oysters.
Oysters, right, oysters, very important, very important.
But I should also say when it rains, it gets muddy, and we got other parts of the creek as
Rains,
well.
it pours.
Not just Leeson's Cove.
Well,
Moving along.
let's get this under control, and we'll get tackle
Go,
next.
right.
All right, thank you. Old business, beach security, Peter.
All right, got beach security. Just have a show and tell here. Take 2 seconds. 1, 2.
It's over.
Done. I'm going home.
1,001, 1,002.
It's a long 2 seconds.
The cameras have arrived.
Oh boy, yay.
Cal, you can pass these around. This is the security box that goes over the camera. We are awaiting the solar panels. They were back ordered, so that's what we're waiting for to get them done. These will allow us to monitor what's going on the beach. So if there's an incident, somebody calls to our attention or we have a problem, we'll pull the chips and we'll find out what happened. It'll also keep people from having to be accosted without having
A watcher.
witness there and give them some protection. An article about the new video surveillance is going to go into the newsletter. Rhea and I are going to work on some signs because the signs are as big a part of it. I want to pass a picture of what the signs at one of the marinas does, and I think I will pattern ours somewhat after that one. And it basically says you're under digital video surveillance 24/7. And we'll probably copy something like that. And the last thing about the beach is the installation. Lou Michaud, who lives down here, has a guy working for him. He's willing to go up and we budgeted $100 for installation. We will probably have to charge that. We are currently under budget. So far, the entire price came to $900, which I think is pretty reasonable. And we'll still be under budget once we install these, hopefully. So we are proceeding. We're just waiting for the solar panels because we don't have to do them once and then go up and do the solar panels again. Does anybody have any questions, Maria? Do you have any questions? You're here representing also the other association which may get involved in this kind of surveillance.
May not too.
Okay.
I have a resounding thank you.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Are they indestructible?
No, they're not indestructible.
So maybe-
Right.
But they'll be very high up.
They'll be high up, and the idea is to see if, we'll have not just one, we'll have 3 of them. If they want to destroy them, then they can make an effort. But we will have it on camera if they try to destroy them.
Okay.
So, I mean, you know, I can't, this is a first small step for $900, $1,000 to meet the needs of the community.
I think it's great, Peter.
I don't know what else we
Good
can
job,
do,
Pete.
but we're working on it. Any comments or anything? I'm going to the next.
You're gonna put them high in a pole, is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah,
And they're battery operated.
that's why we're getting the solar panels. They will recharge.
Ah,
The solar panels will recharge.
that's good. And they'll be high up too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
And we have all the batteries, they're not cheap, they're clean too. But that was all within our budget, right, Rita? Rita, I have to commend Rita for completing the order for us and receiving the stuff here. And so, thank you, Rita.
You're so welcome.
Any questions? It's just one step in the right direction.
You forgot to mention the drone surveillance.
That's a secret.
Maria's here, we didn't want to mention it. Because
Okay, moving along.
I will mention it. I know the club is, we're in this together because this is an entrance to the club. And I know we've been talking about the sheriff for years now. But at least we're going to have evidence that we can take to the sheriff and see if that makes a difference in enforcement. And secondly, we do have an existing ad hoc group, it's not yet a committee, that talks about club DPPOA issues, and that's one of them. Ralph Swartwood and Fran are on it, representing the club, and Gary and I are on it. So I know the club is going its own way on some kind of video surveillance.
Okay.
But once we've had some experience, we'll be talking more about cooperation.
Yeah, it was a trial, we'll give it a shot. Anything else?
Business.
Okay, new business, safety committee, Peter.
Safety committee, I'd like to hold a motion till the end, but I want to just report to you what the radio club has been doing as part of the Community Emergency Service Center. The radio, Drum Point Radio Club, of which I'm now president since John McCall passed, and Dave Hardy is vice president. He's a neighbor of ours in the CRE. And we have a treasurer, Chris Moody, who is, a secretary, who is a member of the Drum Point Property Owners Association. They're all hand radio operators. One thing we did was we had Boy Scouts here. We're trying to get their Eagle badges, and we spent 2 hours giving them enough training to certify them in emergency training. So they will be able to, we had 3 of them here, plus 1 mother, and it was a very good session. I think they will be interested in emergency on a community basis, and maybe even interested in.
Are they residents?
2 of them were residents here. 1 was from another Boy Scout group. This Friday, starting, and if Rhea will be here, they're going to arrive here around 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning. We're going to spend 3 or 4 hours doing what everybody's doing, including Calvert County, which is going from analog to digital. In other words, instead of ham radio operators sitting with microphones, they're sitting now in front of computers, which allows it to integrate with the emergency services at the county level and the emergency links which make up the amateur backup systems throughout the country. In other words, you can sit on a computer here, independent of everybody, talk to somebody in Puerto Rico or Brazil just using your computer. Ukraine, New Zealand, wherever you want. Part of this is a push to maintain radio amateur services on certain high frequencies so that we don't get pushed out by other commercial operators since they're all up for auction. We have to try to get our own band space and preserve it. So by using it, we'll be able to preserve it. That's a little background for all that. But we are going to spend time converting to digital communications here. It's part of a larger plan for the whole Calvert County. And we are one of the 4 links. We're the only one in southern Calvert County to have an emergency capability in that regard. Okay. I want to present a motion which I provided the board. I have 1 slight amendment to take out in the second sentence, collective. Otherwise, the motion stands as I have submitted. Does everybody have a copy? Otherwise, they can read it.
Everybody should have a copy.
It's a paragraph long motion.
It's a motion. You want me to read it? Or?
Why don't you read it just so we're all...
Okay, I request the board raise as an agenda item at the next board meeting the following. This is agenda item. I can make it a motion.
Make it a motion.
Motion.
You have something to say?
Nothing, I have nothing to say.
The formation of a, quote, safety committee, unquote, established by and directed by the DPPOA Board of Directors. The purpose of the committee is to collect, assess, and report to the board on damage to and immediate dangers to the DPPOA's area of responsibility and to mitigate them under the direction and supervision of the DPPOA Board of Directors. The committee will only be activated and tasked by the DPPOA Board of Directors and/or a delegated board member. At least 1 member of the Board of Directors will be a participating member of the committee. The committee will be limited to no more than 12 members, would be responsible for the operations of the DPPOA Community Emergency Service Center and working with the Drum Point Radio Club, parentheses, emergency backup communications, close. Now, to explain my motion, if you will, this is very closely designed to the wording which Jeff, our insurance broker, had given me. And if you want, I can read our correspondence back and forth that I've had with the insurance broker, just to make sure, quote unquote, we're on the same page.
It's the same wording.
But I have taken his wording. Now, some of this wording I might have changed a little bit, but I want to just say that we have been severely restricted in order to protect the association from liability and the volunteers from liability. That is why we are now going into pretty much a passive collection and coordinating and support way of helping the DPPOA in emergency situation. We have faced this now for 2 years, this issue, and this is the best solution I have been able to come up with in order to have a community emergency service center with a group of volunteers. But it has to be an integral part of the Drum Point Property Owners Association and the board.
Dennis?
All due respect, that we agree with that and all know that that's what we need to do. I'm not sure exactly how to do this, because there's 2 issues being
Do we
brought.
have a second or a motion?
I don't know that you can make a motion from the floor. I don't know
Sure you
the
can.
rules that you can do that.
Sure.
I second the motion.
Okay,
And the motion is to form this safety committee
That's correct.
as described in this paragraph.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. The questions after we approve or whatever action we take is the status of this committee. There's reference here to make it a part of our bylaws and establish a committee. I don't know if that's going to take a lot of time. I suggest we merely have it in our policies and procedures that we have this committee established, as opposed to going through bylaws and stuff like that. That's a long.
wait a minute, I'm not sure I understand.
Part of the question here was where to put this. One of the questions, as I remember reading
Yeah,
it,
and so
or
which do you want to
is to
do?
put it in the bylaws. That's gonna take a lot of time and effort, and I don't believe it belongs there. So we have authority to establish a committee. That's why
Yeah, I don't
second the
mention
motion.
standing committee.
And that's it. We all have talked about this for a long time. I think we can just approve it and move forward.
Okay, wait a minute. I have to say something to clarify. And I didn't have my hand up before you, but I had meant to, so you'll bear with me, Max. This is a new step for us, and I am, and we have a motion on the floor to establish this as a committee. And I personally agree with it. I think that we need a little more time before we do something with the bylaws. I think ultimately we want to, but I'd rather not make the decision tonight because I'd like to see the policy and procedure wording worked out and passed before Ralph Swartwood, who helps us with insurance matters, because I just want to make sure, because we had such a dicey problem with the insurance, I just want to make sure we have that policy and procedure wording nailed down, and ultimately, if we need to make it a bylaws standing committee, we can take that to the community, but I'd rather not do it this June. Just give us a little more time. That's my opinion. I think I agree with you.
Same thing, yeah.
Okay.
The one downside of this, and our exposure becomes extensive. By virtue of pulling this under our umbrella, we are taking on this exposure. Good, bad, or different, if problems occur, we are the buck
We
stops with
guarantors. Well,
it's a committee of the board. I don't know that, it makes me nervous.
okay. Max, you had something to say?
Yeah, Peter, you said that, well, you had one small change to the motion as written, what was that?
Take out the word collective,
Is that all? I saw that, but,
Third sentence, or third line,
that's correct.
Second sentence, the third line.
third line.
interesting deletion, but okay.
Well, it was brought to my attention as being somewhat ambiguous, what the word collective meant.
Collective.
What I meant was to be ambiguous, but as broad, but as non-committal as possible.
Area of
What
responsibility
else
is
can I
vague
say?
enough, yeah.
I admit what I'm doing, but I'm trying to, knowing lawyers, litigation. Can you
Right.
define the areas of responsibility of this association? God help you,
Okay, my other comment here is just that we don't have to wait on this to proceed to create a committee to do this. And making it a change to the bylaws is an unnecessary step to be done, since we can form and create as many committees as we want to do whatever we want, for however long we want. We would probably like a paragraph in the procedures and policies as to any further, operative kind of things that might be said, other than the definition. And so I'd also like to make a motion after this one too, so.
but
Well, we
vote
still
on
have a
the
motion on the
Well,
floor.
this one's on the
I
floor.
said I want to make another motion.
Okay.
Can I make just one other discussion point? I have already drafted policy and procedure manuals of
Okay,
names,
great.
which I've given to Dan and Amy and to Rita.
Yeah, once Dan, we have to look at the whole thing together.
The issue is simply a word. If you call it a standing committee, then most standing committees are not according to the bylaws, but they are usually listed in the bylaws.
Then they have to be in the
But, no, they don't. There's no bylaw that says that all standing committees have to be. in the
Oh,
bylaws.
well, that's true. We don't have
There is
one
no
anyway.
law.
We don't have one.
There's no law in the bylaws that says you have to have standing. So, I mean, we're playing a little bit with words here, and I agree with Amy.
Depends what people think standing means, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have not hung up on standing, one way or the other.
And by the way, he's already researched the insurance issue here, and that's why he described the language that he has been basically approved or gone over by the insurance people. So all this is language formulated in order to bring it under the directors and officers liability coverage, which we have from that insurer, which reviewed it. So I don't think we need any other further review of anything.
I have a comment. Attached to this page, stapled on the back, is the result of some further correspondence between Peter and myself. And I was concerned, and I guess you understood exactly what mitigation meant in a passive sense, but I didn't understand it because I was concerned because the CERT people were a lot more interventionist.
That's correct.
And with that context, I needed to know. So your response, which is a little paraphrase here on this attachment, says mitigation can include posting warning signs, coordinating contractors, showing them where the damage is, taking photos to send to outside agencies, or telephoning and cautioning others about the severity of damage or estimated duration of power outages. And we may actually put some of that in the policies and procedures if everyone agrees. But that I just thought would be descriptive. Now, I'm ready to call for the question, are you?
I just need to say one thing.
Yeah.
I understand that we have D&O insurance, but what this does is add additional exposure to us.
Sure.
It's not that we don't have coverage, I understand we would be covered, but it adds this major exposure. That's all my point was.
Yeah, my personal feeling, having been here a while, is I think we need this group. I think we need local groups. We're far away from Prince Frederick. So I'm pleased that it came out this far. Anyway, may I call a question? Okay, all in favor? Passed. Are you opposed? Okay. Yes, Max?
I'd like to make a motion. I move that we accept the proposed committee member list provided by Mr. Holt here
Second?
and approve them for inclusion in the initial committee, safety committee.
Second?
Our discussion,
Yes.
Mr. Shallow asked that he be deleted from the list. Not in the fact that he wouldn't be there as the first to volunteer, but simply he asked that his name not be included. I have not contacted one or two people. Larry, are you willing to serve?
Well, I'm not real good on the computer if you're gonna be doing that, you know, to communicate and that's the only thing.
You compensate for
We
being
will
not
relieve you
good.
of that duty.
Okay.
Let's
You
see,
do very well without a computer.
Maria's on the committee, right?
Yeah. we got-
And.
You want to read the names?
Yeah, if you want.
Go
Well,
ahead.
it's Peter Holt, Gary Heel, Max Munger, John Ivanchek, Rhea Webster, Larry Rich, Chris Moody, Peggy Duffy, Ralph Swartwood, and Joe Frost, all members of the community.
And Kurt or anybody else would like to join the committee, we can. Now, you are making a motion
Motion's been made.
To accept these
Accept
people
these.
as
Just
the
trying to-
initial members of the safety committee, which we just formed.
All right. On the assumption that the others will agree to participate.
Sure. And you can add people when you're.
Okay,
No, it doesn't, it's not.
that's fine. I think we can still vote, and if they want to be deleted, they can. And if anyone else, you know, will have to bring your people back to the floor. Are we ready for the vote? All in favor? Okay,
Thank you, Max.
done with our new
Got it,
business. The next meeting will be the second Tuesday, so that Fran can come, and that's why we have this meeting the second Tuesday. But that will be the 10th of June, unless,
No, we have the meeting on the second Tuesday of the month by regulation.
no, it's the first Tuesday. If you look in our papers, you'll find it's the first Tuesday.
I thought
It
that
matters
last
not.
time we talked about it,
It
she
does
said
not
we changed it for Aubrey. Well, I just like to know which Tuesday it usually is, because everybody keeps calling.
For years, it's been the first Tuesday,
It used to be
and
the first and
after you
third.
asserted that
Okay.
this is second, we looked up the words.
Jesus.
But at any rate, we will have it the 10th,
Second Tuesday.
and then I would like to call for public comment. Do you have any?
Public comment, yes. You had mentioned about Drum Point Days. Are you having that this year again?
It hasn't come up, you know,
I'm sure.
the new board that sits in July will consider Drum Point Day. We normally do it, but we haven't considered it.
Okay, because tentatively, we are doing something August 16th at the DPPI. So if, to give you a heads up of a date that we're looking at, that we can maybe do a joint effort kind of event. So if you can put down August 16th
August 16th.
for
August
possibly
16th.
16th for potential Drum Point Days.
Okay, well, normally we don't respond to public comments, but Fran, we normally work through Fran and we check
Right.
with her.
Right, but just so you know, we're working, this is a separate committee, and Fran's is no longer gonna be on the board, so she will no longer necessarily be your contact after June, I guess, July, there'll be a new president.
Will you be,
No, I will not be your contact, but I just want you to be a heads up, because
Okay.
we talked about this, we
All right,
just
that's
had a
fine.
meeting tonight, so I'm just trying to
that's
give you
good.
guys a heads up if you are willing to work with us so that we can have
All right, well-
similar time.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Thank you for the heads up. Okay,
Oh, I do have one other,
yes.
I guess, a question, but you said I can't really ask a question. My concern is that at one of the meetings I attended, the comment came up about mandatory dues, and it was suggested from several people in the audience that a mail ballot go out for the budget. It's sounding, based on what I'm hearing, that that's not gonna happen, but maybe I'm wrong. So is your budgeting process gonna be the same in terms of, is this gonna be dealt with at the regular,
We are not planning a mailed ballot for the budget. I think that would be unprecedented, and I think it's very, very important for the community to have an opportunity each year to come together and discuss the implications of the budget together. That's really what this type of community actually calls for.
And then how many people do you have attend?
Not enough.
We
Hopefully 35.
we had a quorum at the last meeting.
We'll see, and so that was just my
Everybody's
last
invited.
comment.
Okay.
And not everybody's here in the summertime.